Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Backlog Banter. My name is Tucker Hazel, and this is my sportsmate, Avon Beener. Today, we're here to talk about Nintendo Switch Sports, Nintendo's latest first-party outing on Nintendo Switch, and an attempt, I would say, to recapture the motion-controlled nostalgia of our past, of the Wii Sports Resort, of course, Wii Sports Resort Club fame. I don't even know what I'm saying at this point. But today, we're here to review Nintendo Switch Sports. But if you want to talk to us about Nintendo Switch Sports or, kind of anything else at all, you can join the Discord. Link is top of the description. You can subscribe to the channel. You can ring the bell. You can like the comment. You can go play Chambara, if you know what I'm saying.
Tucker, here's the thing about Nintendo Switch Sports.
Okay.
This game is a testament to the fact that you don't need to make a great game to sell a lot of game.
Sure.
That is today's ancient proverb that I'd like to share with all of you, because this game is off to.
I believe that's in the Old Testament.
I believe that the game, at least in the UK, is off to a fucking crazy start.
Sure.
That it's doing big business and
big numbers. Yeah.
We both contributed to that. We both bought the game at release, and I have fun with Nintendo Switch Sports. I had. Pardon my language, a hootenanny with my girlfriend Jean playing this game. We had a lot of fun together. She kept referring to it as Wii Sports and having to correct herself, and I think that is emblematic both of Nintendo's intention here and the problem with the game. Yes. But ultimately, there is just nothing to do in Nintendo Switch Sports.
Yeah, this is an incredibly peculiar game because it's kind of the best and worst example of a trend that has been happening, especially in the Switch era. It was just Nintendo releasing content light games and finishing them later. We don't really know how much post-launch support this game is going to get. Another sport is a big deal. It will certainly add value to this package in fall. But Jesus Christ, that's far away. But this game is high quality. What's in the game, I think, is good, and I think that's what makes it so confusing. Is you talk about some of these other games, Kirby Star Allies, Mario Golf Super Rush. These games have some flaws in terms of their design and their quality, and you can feel, okay, maybe they rush a little here or they rush a little there. But this game, what's in it is high quality. It looks great. It sounds great. It plays very well. It has a nice charm to it, but there's just not a lot to have charm. It is a very bare bones game, and we'll see if they're able to make it really content rich down the line. But what we're seeing here is so perplexing because I feel like it easily could have done better from like 6 different angles.
Yeah, I basically agree with everything you said, and I think the important thing to note here is that this is not the level of content that was in Wii Sports and Wii Sports Resort. Definitely not Wii Sports Resort. Wii Sports Resort is a very full game, many more sports, a full stamp system, which is like an achievement system of sorts. There was a lot of things to, I don't want to say that. I don't remember what the unlockables were, but there's a lot of things to progress through on top of there just being a lot of different activities in Wii Sports Resort. But even Wii Sports, if people remember, had, for I want to say all, but it might have just been most, of those sports had like side challenges. Like I so clearly remember 100 pin bowling. For instance, that's a great one. Yeah. There was a lot there that Switch Sports Resort doesn't even get to that level. It didn't
even try.
No,
well, it does try in 2 specific circumstances.
Yeah, I think obviously the most robust one here is probably bowling.
Special bowling,
with special bowling, and then like
Which
online.
It honestly might be one of the best parts of this game because it really does feel that like there's design intent, like they're trying something different. But considering that is one of the, I would say 1.5 special modes this have, of course, the other 0.5 being this bad Jackson using the Nintendo Switch leg strap to kick a ball, which I've actually not tried. I don't really care to. I own 2 of them, but I don't know if I'm ever going to use them. That's really the only other quote unquote side content that this game has to offer. Even though, of course, bowling that's just another game mode in bowling, but bowling's the only one of the sports that has a robust secondary mode, which is very peculiar and does lead to this feeling, man, there's just not a lot of options.
Yeah, and I think that it is fucking outrageous that golf is launching in fall for this game. Because what's weird about Nintendo Switch Sports is that Nintendo has positioned this as an online multiplayer game. And the online works very well, as I want to talk about, because I don't know how much you have, but I've actually played, I don't want to say substantial amount, but a couple hours online with randoms.
Yeah, so have I. So have I.
But this is a local multiplayer game.
Yes, it is.
This is the game is most fun with other people in the room. It's the exact same thing as Wii Sports. I mean, it's on so many different spheres. Mm-hmm. But if this game launched with golf, I think immediately it's a half a point higher minimum in terms of quality, because golf is something really meaty to dig into, and another thing to play. Like I'm playing with Jean. The game comes out. We're playing on launch day. We play for a couple hours. We basically gone through the rotation of everything and decided
which by the way takes probably like 45 minutes. I think you and I, played, excuse me, geez, I'm losing my mind over here. Played like 1 or 2 rounds of each sport the first time we booted up the game together. Yeah. And you had to go relatively quickly. I mean, by the time you'd left, I think maybe we had 1 sport left or something like that. And after that, I've played quite a bit of this game with friends coming over, wanting to show them. Some friends enjoying it more than others. Another time with you mixing together 2 people playing online versus randoms, or just myself, things like that. And I feel like I ran the course of what the game had to offer within my first 1 or 2 play sessions, and a couple of design decisions I also want to get to kind of made me not want to go back and play, because it kind of felt like the game was going against its own, not design philosophy, but it's kind of at odds with itself in terms of where the effort is of how people are going to be mostly playing this game.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, because, Nintendo needs to get better about online across the board, right? So I was quite excited to see how robust the online is, as we'll get into. But it's good that it's here. But nonetheless, it is a local play experience, as you're saying, and it's a mistake to hold back so much of that content, and it's a mistake to not offer those side modes for the sake of this gameplay. Now, I am not coming into Nintendo Switch Sports expecting that I, Abram Beener, by myself, when I'm playing video games at fucking 11 p.m., as I usually am, I'm going to play a lot of Switch Sports by myself. That's not what I'm after from this game. What I'm after from this game is a thing that Jean and I want to play on a weekly basis, perhaps. Yeah. But even that seems a little bit strained, in my opinion, when we'll probably boot it up a couple more times over the summer, no doubt, but we'll be just retreading the exact same couple activities. Yeah. And by the time golf comes, it's not going to matter. That's the thing. It's not going to matter. And so it is just, I think the idea of it being at odds with itself is so true. And another way that's at odds with itself, Tucker, which I'd like to really get into, is the fact that this game is fucking beautiful. And I love the Sportsmaids, and I love Spoko Square, but there is nothing to do with them.
Yes, this is really interesting, because I think the biggest controversy about this game is honestly not the lack of content. I think if people are playing it are, having fun with it for what it is. It has been well received on the whole. I feel like we're probably going to be a little more analytical and a little more critical about this game than most people. But is the fact that Nintendo has shifted to these little freaks, the Sportsmaids, which has pissed off a lot of people. And I have been fighting back a little bit against that, because I think that they're really charming. I think they're very simply designed, but they have a lot of energy and pomp to them. But they do feel at odds with themselves, because a lot of the charm of Mies was how customizable they are. And now this is technically not a problem in the game if you only play online with randoms and you go through the battle passes that they give you to unlock random items once a week. Like, this game has sort of created its own downfall with creating the Sportsmaids and pretty much objectively making them, on a customizable standpoint, worse than Mies, but then giving you options, but then not having the options all the way there. It's very strange, and it leaves me wondering where I fell, because I like the Sportsmaids, but I can't really make a strong argument for them.
I think Sportsmaids are better than Mies.
Okay.
Frankly, I think that Mii's are special because Mii's have been here for like 2 console generations.
Yes.
Or almost, I guess, 3 at this point. But the point is, for our gaming lives, Mii's have just been there. That's why people care.
Yeah, of course.
Do people care because Mii's look cool?
No, of course not.
They're totally fine. And they make sense in the ethos of what the Wii generation was and everything. Yeah. But the avatars are probably cooler on Xbox. And I think what's nice about the Sportsmaids is they kind of find a harmony between the simplicities of the Mii's and the more humanoid structure of the avatar, and they still have a sort of sleek modern Nintendo design. Like I look at this and I think, yeah, this is the same modern Nintendo that also made the characters in ARMS and the characters in Splatoon. Like,
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I like this aesthetic. I like the feel of them.
Yeah.
I
So do
think
I.
I think that the customization is only an issue insofar as the way Nintendo is structured, how you get those unlockables, as we'll talk about the
Sure.
online.
Yeah.
But I think the Sportsmaids themselves are actually quite pleasant. I would love to see them expand beyond this game, but I don't think they will because the name Sportsmates is so
Yep.
particular to this
Yeah.
game. My issue, Tucker, larger is that Woohoo Island became a persistent Nintendo character in and of itself
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
across, Wii Fit Plus, across Wii
Mhm.
Sports Resort, Smash Brothers, Mario Kart, Pilot Wings Resort. Like it
Yeah.
became a character, and Woohoo Island is cool, but Woohoo
Mhm.
Island is basic.
Yeah.
Woohoo Island, I don't think has the same level of detail and this cool like modern urban hip
Yeah.
feel of Spoko Square. I love it, but there's no opportunity to walk through it. There'd be
Yeah.
something because this game, so much of the sports, I want to talk about the individual sports too. So much of those are just pulled from past games, basically full stop.
Half of them. Yeah.
Right. What about like the jogging from Wii Fit Plus? Why can't I strap on the leg strap and
Mhm.
jog through Spoko Square?
Sure. Yeah.
Why aren't there opportunities to have like just a little hub area instead of just a selectable map, sort of similar to Splatoon, where I walk into the soccer stadium to play soccer
Sure.
or things like
Yeah.
it could be surface level, it could be basic, but I want to peer behind the buildings of Spoko Square because I like the
Mhm.
architecture, I like the feel of it, and there was so much work that went into those backgrounds. These aren't
Absolutely.
basic stadiums, but they're just so flat. You can't interact with them at all.
Yeah, it's again, it's a pros and cons game for me. I do want to return
Sure.
a little bit to the Sportsmates because I think where
Sure,
people
sure.
are really coming down to on the customizability isn't the costumes that you can unlock, isn't the fact that these aren't, it's a different design of characters, and
Right.
that's upsetting a certain group. But when you start up a character, you have very limited options.
That's a good point.
You can't make yourself an old man. You can't make yourself skinny. You can't make yourself fat. There isn't the flexibility that Mies had on their base design level to put
Sure,
yourself
that's a good
into the
point.
game. You have to make a quarter-assed of replication of yourself. And I just forgoed that, forwent that, and made my own Sportsmates character named Taka. But that's where I kind of had to go because I didn't really
Sure.
feel like I had the flexibility to recreate myself in the game, which is, of course, one of the big charms of the Mies is it's not yourself. It's a little fucking dumb, chibi, stupid version of yourself with bug eyes, but it's yourself.
Yeah,
And
sure.
the Sportsmates, if they had more options for, you can't even move the eyes around on the face. You can't choose a different kind of nose. Like there is a limited value to them that isn't actually remedied that much by the clothing and accessories that you get through the online play. But I think on that level, I am disappointed in them because they do feel very pared back, especially if you don't play online at all. You only have like the same coat of 7 different colors to choose from, and that's what your character can wear.
Yeah.
I think that's where that they feel a little bit lacking for me. But Spokane Square, I agree. I think it's lovely. One of my favorite places that Nintendo has created recently is the Chambra area. And you look in the background, there's these purple and green and yellow vines hanging down. There's like a coffee shop in a shipping crate in the background. You're like, what the fuck is this? This is great. They're, dark red and brown flooring. And I think it's beautiful, but I think you're right in that it feels limited. It's like, okay, we have one background for each of these sports, and we're going to make them look as good as possible, but that's all you're going to get. You can't even select a cool stadium with that's at evening or at nighttime or something like that. There's very little options in how you want your sports experience to happen because it's just like play soccer with 4 people or 2 people. Congratulations, there you go. That's the options you get. It's like, okay, well, why can't I put like my Sportsmates as my teammates? Why can't I choose a different stadium? Why can't I change up the size of the court a little bit or make myself move faster? Because in soccer, you do move a little bit slow. Like there's not a lot of flexibility to this game, which makes its problems shine even harsher, in my opinion.
No, I think you're right. And I think we ought to butcher this segue, but use it anyway and talk about soccer and talk about all the sports.
Yeah.
I think some of them we can move through very briefly. I think volleyball is fucking boring. I think volleyball is easily the worst one. And I also found it to be the least clear in terms of what's actually going on and the timing of it. Jean and I played it once, and like she didn't really understand the timing, and frankly, I didn't really either.
Nope.
And
I didn't. Yeah.
playing it online a little bit, I'm like, okay, I feel the tempo a little bit more. It's somewhat more engaging in other sports,
Mhm.
but I think that one is definitely the weakest of the bunch.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels the most new because it's the other than soccer, which then you can compare to strikers or to Rocket League or something like that. This volleyball game does feel, I'd say, the most unique out of them. It's like, okay, you gotta set up, you gotta spike it, you gotta do these different things that none of the other games even attempt to do in terms of that kind of timing. But I didn't understand the timing either, and the game doesn't teach you it very well. There's this tutorial that you have to play through, and I spent a long time in the tutorial because I just couldn't figure out the timing to get through the tutorial. It's like, oh, you did too early. And then I do it a little bit earlier or do it a little later. And it's like, I still didn't like that. Why don't you try it again? And that was really frustrating to me. And so, the handful of times I've played volleyball, I just found it frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to go through what my head canon of least most interesting sports is.
Okay.
And you can just disagree with me as they come.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably a hot take, but I think in terms of my interest ranking, bowling is probably next.
Sure.
It's less a commentary on the game's quality and more a commentary on the fact that this is the most been there, done that, I think.
Absolutely.
Tennis is very close. I put bowling and tennis neck and neck, but I just have a personal bias towards tennis because I play tennis.
Yeah.
So it gets a little bit more of a pass when it shouldn't. But we'll just talk about these two sports together. I mean, they are just from Wii Sports.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're just ripped straight from them.
There are differences, and I don't think they're major enough to be like, holy shit, I can't believe this is the Switch Sports version of bowling or tennis. But I do like the fact that bowling is structured as a bracket. Is that you have 16 players all going at the same time, and people get eliminated. I think that's really fun. It's fun to watch other people go when you're finished your own what's it called, set block.
I don't know. I've played bowling one time in real life.
But so I like bowling for what it is. I'm not a bowling person in real life. I don't think it's the most engaged. Certainly other people are enjoying a lot more, but it does feel the most polished, I would say. And with the special mode, that also makes it the most engaged in terms of variety. Like there's a lot of little setups that they have for the special mode and different levels of complexity and stuff like that. So I agree with you. I'm not a huge fan of bowling, but in terms of, I would say, quote unquote, objective quality, how polished it is, how varied it is, how unique it is in comparison to bowling back in the day. I definitely think it's up there.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, that's why my list is completely subjective and just a horseshit when I move through the sports. But you're right. It's just like at the end of the day, I'm still just swinging my Joy-Con like a bowling ball, and the structure, as you're saying, is quite solid. From an objective metric, it might be the second best sport, period. I think soccer is the best, as we'll talk about. But it's just like, there's just, sure, there's other obstacles, but I'm just bowling again. And that extends to tennis, which basically the two material changes are that you can't just fucking do this and win anymore. And also they figured out the coding to where in Wii Sports, if you swung your Wii remote, it would swing the racket of both your net man and your back player if you're playing by yourself. Now they're like, oh, only the person close to the ball swings. But when I'm getting down to that granular of a design change, notice a difference. I'm like, guys, what are we doing here?
That's also, I think that personally, I think that's maybe the most disappointing for me, other than volleyball. Just because I don't really I don't really understand the gameplay of tennis to a huge degree. Of course, you went out and actually did tennis a couple times in your life, so
a couple times
you've got a little more experience. But I've only played it a handful of times. I've never found it to be particularly compelling. But I think that also extends for me to badminton.
I swear there's strategy in badminton.
And he swears there's strategy in badminton. But last night might have proved him right, might have proved him wrong. We played. I was doing good, and then I was doing bad. It was a whole fucking thing. But I think maybe for me, the reason that badminton is so disappointing isn't because it's a fine sport in real life that requires a different approach. Is it doesn't really feel like it requires too much of a different approach as opposed to tennis. It just feels like we have the motion controls of moving a racket around done pretty well, very accurately. What can we do with another one of these? Oh, badminton. Okay, make that in 20 minutes. Here we go. And that's another one of the 6 sports.
I will say we should note that the motion control do feel very great throughout the game.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it goes back to this just underlying feeling of polish, because even though bowling and tennis have been there, done that, they feel great to play. Like that's
And
not the
probably
issue.
better than the Wii Sports versions. I mean, I haven't played them
I haven't played
forever,
so
but
fucking long.
in terms of accuracy, in terms of
Sure.
granularity.
But when it comes down to badminton, I think the badminton is quite a bit of fun because it's about as fast paced as tennis, but I really do think there's a little bit more going to it, because if you time that shot just right, you can hit a more powerful one. And if you're playing with people online who know what they're doing, then it becomes a little bit more of a cat and mouse game of, okay, now I'm going to hit a drop shot so that messes up their tempo so they can't keep hitting the power shots at me. And when you get into a long rally and you're fucking fighting for that point, I think there's quite a bit of fun. It's simple fun, but it's the same simple fun that runs throughout all of the games. And so in execution, I found badminton to feel more deserving of its spot than I thought it was going to.
Sure.
When I initially anticipated, it was just being like, okay, it's just tennis, but it's on a badminton court in terms of the mechanics of it. And it is, but it isn't also.
Yeah.
I just find I
definitely recognize that. I don't think it's unwarranted. I think it's totally fine that it's in this game. I think the problem comes when this is one of the 6 sports in the game. If this was one of 10 or 15, or, God forsake, even like combine everything that they've done in all these fucking games, 20, something like that. It's like, badminton's a fun mode. If you're tired of tennis, you want something tighter, a little more fast paced. Cool. Yeah. But they're presenting this as one of the new things that Switch Sports has, and it is, but it isn't. I think you're right.
Sure. And then we get into the last 2 already, but I think the best 2, which are
absolutely. Chambara.
And soccer.
Yeah.
Chambara is great.
It really is. It really is.
In part, it's sword fighting from Wii Sports Resort, but it's the main Chambara head-to-head gameplay is way better. I do miss the fruit cutting mode of it was like speed cutting, whatever. Well, you didn't just cut fruit, but the precision mode of Wii Sports Resort and the one where you watch around Woohoo Island fucking hitting people. That was a ton of fun. Those are obviously not here. But just the raw gameplay of Chambara. Standing on this little platform, the completely accurate Joy-Con tracking, following your blade as you're trying to block, trying to parry, trying to get little attacks in there. It is so much fun trying to get in the head of your opponent and fuck around with your sword and everything. It really is great. Really is great stuff.
Chambara is definitely the one I've had the most fun with. I think I never actually played Wii Sports Resort, so for me, this is everything about it is entirely new. Which is obviously very subjective, but I also like a lot that this game technically does have options that you can choose the normal beam, the normal sword, the charged sword, or dual swords, which do play mildly differently. But the fact that you can choose what your favorite and choose quote unquote different strategies to approach your opponent, I think does add a little bit of flexibility to this game that only bowling has in terms of variety in the special mode. But again, I love that background. I think it's a very tight, very tense, a very skill-based game, and I definitely found the most fun out of that one.
I think it's a real hoot.
I definitely did come across a couple people online whose strategy was doing that. Yeah. If they move it back and forth really fast, so you can't really know what you're doing, and let me tell you, that can fuck you up if you don't know how to counter it, which I don't.
And then soccer. Soccer, I think. Well, soccer feels the weirdest here because it's like if you just mapped the 2 different kicks to buttons, there would be no reason for it to be in this game, really. Ultimately, you can do the leg kick mode. To be honest with you, I don't even know how to play that. I don't even know where to find it in the menus.
So I don't either. Maybe I'll go downstairs and figure that out for another recording.
I want to say that's not even in the game yet.
No, it is. I saw people talking about it in reviews.
Okay. All right. The point is, I think this one's quite fun. I think this is the one that engages the competitive spirit the best. Yeah. And it is quite simple. It's got the big ball of Rocket League, but it's not Rocket League. It's certainly not Strikers. It's just this great mix of goofy gameplay where like you can control the ball, but you can't really. You can strategize, but you can't really. It finds a great balance, I think, between all the different appeals that makes a lot of Nintendo multiplayer games so much fun, because it feels fucking awesome when you get a goal. Yeah. And it's so annoying when you get scored on, but it's just so quick and fun. You kind of, in the back of your head, you're like, I know I didn't really earn that goal, and they didn't really earn that goal. They got lucky doing something. It's just fun. It's just classic Nintendo fun, and I really think soccer is pretty great.
No, it's definitely one of the best ones. I mean, it certainly feels the most involved. There's
Yeah.
teamwork, which I don't really. The only other game that has, well, I guess volleyball and tennis both have teams, but like,
Yeah.
how in sync, how much strategy can you get combining it with your teammates? But soccer, if you do have another actual player that you communicate with on your team, you can say, hey, pass it over here.
Yeah.
And also, I think the head dive is really fun. Just a really stupid option. Didn't have to add it, but
Right.
it gives the game its own charm of, no, this is something more than just soccer, because this fucking ball is so huge that you can rock yourself forward like Luigi's side special, and make it go flying across the court.
Yeah.
I definitely have a lot of fun with that one. I do think it might be the one that for me feels like it could have more added in terms
Sure.
of different courts, of some customizability and of speed, or I really don't know, different sized balls even. But other than that, what is there, I've certainly had a lot of fun with.
The last thing we have to touch on, I think, is the online infrastructure.
Ah, yes,
So we can get out of here.
The transportation infrastructure.
The netcode is very smooth in this game.
Yeah,
it's very, very smooth. I've experienced a couple issues with disconnects, but they're relatively minor. The games run really great. We were playing soccer last night, and I had like the ball was like rubber banding a little bit, but and for a Nintendo multiplayer game, the netcode here is fucking awesome. And for just a general online game, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
So the issue, in my opinion, is more coming down to how multiplayer is structured in terms of its rewards.
Sure.
Because as you pointed out yesterday, you can't earn rewards when you're playing with friends.
Yeah.
You can only do it when you're playing against random people online. So then I told you, Tucker, it does not fucking matter.
Yeah.
Because the reward system here is so superfluous.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's not just necessarily because it's only cosmetic. That's fine. I like the idea of dressing up the Sportsmaids, and there is some pretty cool looking cosmetics here. The issue is that it's a very basic EXP system that unlocks basically the ability for you to like get a random item off of a lottery ticket, essentially. It's not very satisfying.
Sure.
Even in Halo Infinite, which had a horribly borked progression system, I could see, okay, I am 2 levels away from this piece of gear I really want. And that incentivized me to keep going. And Switch Sports is like, oh, I might get that piece of gear I want on my next level up. I might not. Who knows? Yeah. And that doesn't feel very satisfying to me. And there is the structure of ranking up, and I've heard that the rank up system is actually quite solid. Friend of the show, John Cartwright, was talking about that on Twitter. So I have no issues there, but it's just the meat of that progression. When you both have very little content to explore and very poor progression fundamentals, you got to have one or the other, or ideally both.
Absolutely.
And doesn't nail that.
It's a little bit confusing for me, because I think that the reward system, the EXP system is fine to me. I mean, I guess the only other game that I've really ever put a decent amount of time into that had something like this was Overwatch with the loot boxes, which is ostensibly the exact same thing. At the exact amount of XP every time, you're going to get a loot box, and it's going to be entirely random. Luckily, this you don't get repeats, so that's a little bit nice, a little bit of a saving grace. But I think the fact that this system has been locked to only playing online with randoms is what confuses me the most, because as I said, the Sportsmates are very limited, not in terms of their charm, but in terms of their customizability if you're not playing online. And there's 4 ways to play this game: by yourself like a fucking loser, with friends in person, which is I think how this game should be marketed, should be focused, and also online with friends in a private room. And none of those options allow you to upgrade your character to make them look the way you want, to incentivize you to play one more match. Only the online does with randoms, and that kind of frustrates me. No, it really frustrates me, because I think it is where the at odds with itselfness shines the brightest. It's like, hey, people are going to be playing this mostly with friends in person, maybe a single player by themselves, and that's probably not very common, or with their friends online, because I feel like this game and the fun that comes from communicating with someone and beating them and having a little rivalry, you're going to want to play like we have with friends online. So you are communicating, as opposed to random people on the internet. But none of those have the system that I think does make it at least somewhat more engaged.
Yeah, I think what it comes down to is that the game has so little content that Nintendo is clearly banking on your replayability online to motivate your engagement with the game, right?
Absolutely.
So through that narrow and cynical lens, it makes sense why you only unlock things online that way. Because ultimately, playing online multiplayer is all about repetition. It's about repetitious matches and everything. So it masks a little bit of the problems with the game if you're playing as other people and you're fighting different opponents, and that's where the replayability comes from. But again, it comes back to the point of like, you need to either have a lot of content or good progression to work. Because I'll give two examples here. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has basically no progression system. They pretty much stripped it out of Mario Kart 8 entirely, and that already didn't have a lot to unlock, really. But there is so much content in that game that people are still playing it constantly online because there's just so many tracks, so many permutations of the gameplay experience, it doesn't matter. Splatoon 1 at release had four maps, which is nothing in Turf War, and I think one ranked mode, right?
Sure.
But there was a lot to unlock and a lot of gear to level up and things. So there's a great feeling of progression there.
Yeah.
But so in both cases, Nintendo was able to skate by losing one half of that perfect multiplayer balance.
Yeah.
This game has neither, and I think that the positioning of the online focus might feel at odds to us, but in Nintendo's eyes, it probably is the way to make this game feel bigger than it is. And I just think that that's a mistake, because there are ways to genuinely make it bigger than it is, which is to put in golf from day one, to put in these side modes, to put in the apparently data-mined sports like dodgeball, basketball, which are apparently data-mined, which I've read online.
I haven't heard that, but that's kind of exciting, actually.
It just doesn't make sense to position this game. It's the exact same song and dance we've said so many times. It does not make sense to position this game as a multiplayer title with a games as a service model. It just doesn't.
Yeah, and the only thing that I still have to talk about is more of a conceptual problem that I have with this game.
Sure.
We've talked about its lack of content, but I think for me, again, what's in there is largely good. I'm not a huge fan of volleyball, but maybe if I got into it, I would enjoy it a little more, whatever.
Yeah.
But this doesn't really feel like it needs to be on Nintendo Switch. Like, it's utilizing the special aspects of the Switch to make something more than what the sports series has been.
Sure.
The Switch has two controllers that have entirely separate gyro. It has multiple modes of play in terms of handheld and tabletop, and separating the Joy-Con and all of that. I really wish that they had leaned into this being Switch sports. And obviously more sports from the past, I think, would have been, I think that's kind of the baseline of what I wish they would have done. Bring back boxing, make that a little more involved now that you've got two controllers that can really sync your controls like they did with arms.
Yeah.
Bring back honestly, I can't really remember all the sports that were in those previous games, but bring those all back. If you're only going to have one court per sport, fine, you can get away with that if you have more sports to go through. But I also think that they should have had a wider scale of sports. I think that maybe combine some of the ideas that they had in game. God, what's the game you really like? The tabletop games, 51 Worldwide Classics,
Clubhouse Games, 51 Worldwide Classics.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I forgot Clubhouse Games.
It's a great game.
Take some of those ideas. Have this be Nintendo Switch Sports in terms of there's some that are better played in tabletop mode, some that are better played in handheld mode, some that are better played in TV mode. Why isn't there that breadth of variety that makes this like, this is the Switch's version of sports? We couldn't do this on previous consoles. As it stands, the motion controls in the Joy-Con are better than they were in the Wiimote, but you could have done most of this with two Wiimotes. It doesn't really feel like it takes advantage of the Switch's identity or hardware in a way that makes it really compelling. And of course, then it's also lacking in just general content. So I think those two pillars together make it just really disappointing execution of this game.
I mean, I think it's just transparent what they were doing here.
Yeah.
It's that simple. I mean, this is Wii Sports again.
It is, yes.
And it's still at $40. So it's probably not a very hard pickup for honestly, I would not be surprised if for 4, 5, 6, 7 million Switch owners to just say, we love this before, we're gonna love it again here. Because if you loved Wii Sports and you didn't come into this game with a discerning eye, and I don't mean that sounds like harsher than I mean it, but like if you just came into it thinking, okay, I want Wii Sports again, they gave you Wii Sports again. Yeah. And they did it with a lot of polish. Yeah. But we came into this game wanting more, and Nintendo should have given us more. And I would have in a heartbeat paid $60 for
Yep.
a full content complete Switch Sports game that, as you're saying,
Absolutely.
took better advantage of these controls, because ultimately that would have resulted in a multiplayer game that had a sense of longevity. Because when the Switch is not new anymore, when the Switch is fucking dead and buried in two systems like old, just go back and play Wii Sports Resort, because the novelty of the newness won't be there. And then all of a sudden what came before will just be objectively so much better.
Yeah.
So
I kind of wish that they had combined ideas from Clubhouse games, 1-2 Switch, and this, and sort of made it its own like variety package of different things that you can do it. And of course, as I was saying, have had more permutations of this game and customizability. But man, I really hesitate to call this a good game. I've certainly had fun with it, but I think it has so many flaws that I really don't know how I'm really ever going to go back to it because it is so content light. All that I can bank on is that I am engaged or interested in the sports that they add later down the line. But we've seen that not pay off numerous times in the Switch's life cycle, and I'm worried that it'll be the exact same here.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I mean, as I said before, I think I will boot this up with Jean a couple more times over the summer because it is polished fun. I do enjoy it. It is a great casual gameplay experience. It is. The problem with Switch Sports, in my opinion, is not that it is bad. I actually think that it is a very good game. But objective goodness is not subjective goodness, right?
Sure.
And so this is a game that had a clear target. It hit that target as a bullseye, I think. But it's on like a fucking shitty target board over here. It's not it's not the bullseye board I wanted them shooting at. That's my problem.
It's on the bullseye that they built back in 2006 or 7 or when the Wii came out. They just threw it at that board again.
And here's the thing, Tucker. I'll never have another chance to show this on camera, so I will. Under my desk here, I'm sure this sounds terrible over my microphone, but under my
plastic things from Wii Sports.
No, what I have here is even crazier. Well, it's not really not that crazy. This is a 5-gallon tub full of
Labo.
Full of Labo and Mario Kart Home Invasion stuff. I also bought 1-2 Switch at release. I played a lot of Clubhouse games. I like Nintendo's casual software a lot. Yeah. But I think that in the case of every other one of those pieces of software, even though they had similar issues in terms of scope, they had so much more, well, Clubhouse games notwithstanding. Labo and 1-2 Switch had a lot more ambition in terms of what they had. They had more ambition. What Clubhouse games had way more content. Yeah. This just ends up feeling like an addition to that lineup, but not a satisfying one. I mean, God damn it, Tucker. I have a fucking cardboard bird here. Yeah. And if I pull its wing, it's kind of broken because it's been sitting in this box, but it flaps when it pulls its wings. This is a level of creativity facilitated by the Switch and by new ideas. And Nintendo Switch Sports just simply is not that.
Nope, it absolutely isn't. But we will see. We'll get to follow along with this game and its release cycle, and presumably. Oh, and
I don't know why that's in there.
For old boy, and presumably, never check in on this game again. Frankly.
I still have to watch Age of Ultron. I really don't want to, but I have to. I'm pretty sure nobody's gonna be home for dinner tonight, so I'm probably just gonna put it on the big TV, make myself a little bit of grub, and watch it after I finish editing.
That's the only food they have available in fucking buttfuck Maine, wherever you live.
I have to fucking grind it up. I imagine you make gruel in like a fucking carved out rock, and you got like a fucking stick or something. A mortar and pestle. That's what it is.
Yeah. Don't worry, we're a mortar and pestle household down here.